list, or I had a whatever he said, I forget how he said that. And basically what I'd done is picked several songs and was going to have a testimonial service this morning, along with, and you're going to need your books back out, along with the responsive reading on page 607. And so after we didn't need it this morning, after the Lord let Frank and them be here because of their shortened vacation, I wanted to do this tonight, and then I've got a little bit to add to it, because I knew that most everyone that's here tonight are those of you that are in our Bible study on Wednesday nights, and we're talking about love. And I knew the few that weren't would understand and catch on quite quickly. And I also wanted to include the kids tonight, so I've got something, a story for them. And so, page 607, if you want to read with me, you'll read the dark parts, and I'll read the lighter parts. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not love, I am become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal.
And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could not remove mountains and have not love, I am nothing.
And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not love, it profiteth me nothing.
Love suffereth long and is kind.
Love envieth not.
Love knoweth not itself.
It is not puffed up.
Doth not behave itself as
Seeketh not our own.
is not easily provoked.
Thinketh no evil,
Rejoiceth not in iniquity.
but rejoiceth in the truth.
Beareth all things.
Believeth all things.
Hopeth all things.
Endureth all things.
Love will never fail, but whether during the prophecies they shall fail, whether their tongues they shall cease, whether there be knowledge it shall vanish away.
For we know in part, and we prophesy in part.
But when that which is perfect is come, even that which is marred shall be done away.
When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things.
For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known.
And now abideth faith, hope, love, these three. But the greatest of these is love. You know, on our study on Wednesday nights, we've been talking about the agape love. Okay? And Jesus said that the greatest commandment was to love God. And the second greatest was to love one's neighbor. In the New Testament, Christians are commanded to love 55 times. That's pretty important. You know, if you had to write sentences, I will love my neighbor 55 times, guys, that'd be a lot, wouldn't it? Yeah, you'd hate that in a way, wouldn't you? Okay? All right. Well, it also says that agape love is an unconditional, divine love, the kind of love that God exercises toward mankind. Agape love is the power that moves us to respond to someone's needs with no expectation of reward. Agape love is the willingness to give of oneself without reservation to another person for his or her well-being without expectation of reward. Too often, we do things thinking, what am I going to get paid to do this? You know, there's times when the kids at school say, am I going to get a grade for this? You know, and to me that's saying, am I going to get paid for this? You know, and so I often try to say to them, you know, there's a lot of things you're going to do in life that you're not going to be paid for. You know, and so I try to teach that as we go along. Now, to answer their question, whenever they do have a grade in art, like in 7th grade, they start getting that. They're freaked out at that point. They get a grade on everything they do. I believe, I'm one of those teachers that believe if they do the work, they ought to get paid for it. And to me, that grade is a pay. Okay? And so it just rewards those that actually work and do what they should. Now, kiddos, In Romans, okay, this is for all of us, but in Romans it says, if your enemy is hungry, feed him, and if he is thirsty, give him something to drink. One of the things that we studied, and I don't remember which night it was, and I kind of skimmed earlier, but I couldn't find it, was we talked about heaping coals of kindness on those who do us wrong, okay? Have you ever had someone pick on you? Have you, Ethan? Ethan says yes. He's had someone pick on him. Okay? Well, let me tell you a story. For those of you that missed it, he did this. I was actually meeting maybe somebody at school, but yeah, I had brothers that picked on me too, Ethan, so that happens in the home. So anyway, this is a story about being picked on. It's called losing an enemy, okay? Losing an enemy. Last year, my brothers were enrolled in Pioneers Club, a weekly kids program at our church, kind of like our CIAs, okay? Daniel was 9 and Timothy was 7. My sister, my dad, and I were all teachers in the same church program. At one point during the year, my brothers began to complain that a boy named John was picking on them. John was an 11-year-old foster boy and was in my dad's class. He was the type of kid who always seemed to be in trouble. Worse, he didn't consider that it was his behavior that was the problem, but instead decided that my dad was picking on him. He often took it out on my brothers by knocking off their hats, calling them names, kicking them and running away. Even I received an occasional rude remark from John myself. We all thought he was a real pain. When my mom heard about the problem, she came home from town a few days later with a big bag of wrapped butterscotch candies. These are for John, said Daniel and Timothy. For who? They said. For John. Mom went on to explain how an enemy could be conquered with kindness. It was hard for any of us to imagine being kind to John when he was so annoying. But the next week, the boys went to Pioneers Club with butterscotch candies in their pockets, one of them for themselves and one for John. As I was heading to my class, I overheard Timothy saying, "Here, John, this is for you." When we got home, I asked Timothy what John's response had been. Timothy shrugged. He just looked surprised, and then he thanked me and ate it. The next week, when John came running over, Tim held onto his hat, braced himself for an attack. But John didn't touch him. He only asked, "Hey, Tim, do you have any more of that candy?" "Yep." All a relieved Tim reached into his pocket and handed John a candy. After that, John found him every week and asked for candy. The most times Timothy remembered to bring them, and one for himself and one for John. Meanwhile, I conquered my enemy in another way. One time as I passed John in the hall, I saw a sneer came over his face. He started to open his mouth, but as he did, I said, "Hi, John," and gave him a big smile before he had a chance to speak. Surprised, he shut his mouth, and I walked on. From then on, whenever I saw him, I would greet him with a smile and say, "Hi, John." Before he had a chance to say anything rude, instead, he started to simply return the greeting. It's been a while since John picked on my brothers, and he's not rude to me anymore. Even my dad is impressed with the change in him. He's a nicer John now than he was a year ago. I guess because someone finally gave him a chance. He wasn't the only one to change. My whole family learned what it meant to love an enemy. What's strange is that the process we lost that enemy, and he was conquered by love. Love, it never fails. And that's what our study was on this last week, was how that love never fails. This is all short tonight, but I thought this was a cute way to end this. If I can find it here. All right. This is out of a little book that Sheila Sturgeon gave me years ago. It's called A Laugh a Day. And this particular one says, God is love and so is a dog. Okay? In a Sunday school class, students were asked to write a short prayer. One 6-year-old boy fidgeted in his chair. He frowned thoughtfully. He nibbled on his pencil. Have you ever seen that happen? Have you ever done that? In my class, you get in trouble, don't you? Yeah. You know, the kids usually will bring them to me and say, Miss Buckner, look at this. And they'll have teeth marks all over it, and everybody's going, oh, and we throw them away, don't we? Yeah. Well, anyway, back to the story. The 6-year-old fidgeted in his chair, frowned thoughtfully, and nibbled on his pencil for several minutes before committing his prayer to paper. And it read, Dear God, please help me to be the person my dog thinks I am. You know, what does your dog always think of you? The best, right? And so I thought that was a cute little prayer from a child. Just simple. You know, oftentimes we wear hats that really don't belong to us. Oftentimes we put on a smile and go on, and you know, we need to be able to show kindness and love to everyone. You know, even if it's not the person you normally would think you would show kindness and love to, and that's what we were talking about here a few weeks ago, about how to do it to the person who's rough to you and mean to you. And when you think it's the end of the world, one more thing. The caterpillar calls the end of the world what God calls a butterfly. So, think about it. When things are really rough and really tough, and you think it's the end of the world, nothing's going right, God probably has a different thought. So.